Hello, everybody. I'm Erica Lukes. This is UFO Classified. And of course, I'm here with my bestie, my research partner, Jack Brewer, and my partner at Expanding Frontiers Research. Make sure you go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org to check out our website, to check out the latest. We've just received more FOIA requests, which are responses, which you can imagine is pretty overwhelming, but Jack is on top of it, and he does such a phenomenal job writing the requests and then going through the information. So make sure you go like, subscribe to the Expanding Frontiers Research channel on YouTube. And then while you're at it, please click like and subscribe to UFO Classified. I appreciate all of you being here, and it's just a lot of fun to see everybody in chat. I know you're in different areas of the world, and that makes me really happy to know that we've got a great audience who is respectful and fun and asks great questions and keeps me honest. So I appreciate you guys very, very much. So tonight we are going to have some fun. We decided this before the show started because we all need to have a little joy in life. And I know our guest this evening, is going to bring it home for us. So AP Strange is here, and I can't believe, you haven't been on my show before, have you?
No, I haven't. Yeah, and
What?
no pressure, by the way. I gotta like bring up everybody's spirits as the world's crumbling.
This is all on you, Buster. You are in deep trouble, but that's okay. We'll do it together. We'll be each other's support system. So, but I love
I
it.
like
I mean,
that.
you have such a great personality, and I was telling you before the show started that I love your production. You know, the way you do things, your questions. I mean, everything. The way you make guests feel so comfortable, and that's a talent. And so for me, it's fun to listen to you, and I can't believe you've never been on the show. So welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And Jack, great to talk to you again. Jack was recently on my show for
I
people that
know.
haven't listened before. So yeah,
So
you can go
cool.
back and hear us talk about all kinds of things. That was a lot of fun. So
Jack is always a lot of fun to have, and he knows
yeah,
so much. It's great. I love having him as a research partner. I'm sure some days he's about ready to, strangle moi, but that's okay. I'm just kidding. But so, okay, so you have, first of all, everybody needs to go to your webpage if they don't know who you are. And I'm assuming by everybody in chat, they know who you are and they like you quite a lot. And so it's apstrange.com. So make sure everybody, you go check it out and check out his show, and then look at some of the fabulous guests that he has had on over time. And so, first of all, since I have never had the pleasure of talking to you, will you
mm,
like give me your background, give me like your life details on
my
the spot
life
again?
details.
I
Okay,
know it's a little scary, isn't it?
check with Peter Thiel. He's got a whole file on me, I think. So.
Dun dun dun, Mr.
uh,
Antichrist.
Right. Yeah. Well, he knows about everybody. Palantir does.
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
getting
little
this out of
creepy,
my
ain't
system now, and then we can bring up
it?
the room. Uh, well, as far as my background goes, I I feel like anytime somebody asks me for a bio when they invite me on somewhere, is I just write a brand new one because it's like I don't really feel like I'm ever any one thing. I mean, so I've been on shows to talk about all manner of things because I have a whole lot of interests, and they all fall under the broad umbrella of what I just say weird. They could all be described as weird. Um, I like some things that are less weird too, but you know, I've had my own paranormal experiences in my life going back to early childhood. In fact, one of my earliest memories was something really strange and paranormal, and uh, so I always kind of grew up with the possibilities in my mind and a wider range of possibilities than I think a lot of people do. Um, this only kind of occurred to me recently, where uh, I was at an event that was like a storytelling event, and I told a little bit of like poltergeist story from when I was a kid to a crowd, and I thought about it after, and I was like, yeah, like my own personal experiences are one thing that would stop me from ever entirely discarding all of it. It would be hard for me to say like, okay, it's all bunk, because I know there's a lot of bunkum out there, and I'm very enthusiastic about that too. I
Well, I can
find
relate to
frauds
that
and
one.
hoaxes fascinating, and the psychology that goes into it, and the legends that build off of it. Um, but I don't think I could ever get to a point where I have to say, there's nothing paranormal. It's none of it's true because I've experienced some, and that's kind of what keeps me there. So, uh, pretty much my whole life, I've just been collecting books, in part because I read Fahrenheit 451 when I was a kid, and was terrified that there wouldn't be books in the future, so I wanted to hoard all my own.
Oh, well, that's the best reason I've heard so far. That's good.
And so I have a huge weird library, is what I call it, just tons and tons of weird books. And for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been just getting online to. My original idea was just share stuff that I was finding in my books that I thought was cool. So and I did that via Twitter, which at the time, back in those days, was a wonderful avenue for that. So and I made a lot of connections and a lot of friends. Started talking to people that I never thought I would be in contact with. It's like I went from reading Lauren Coleman's blog and his books when I was a kid to like shooting him messages on Twitter like we're pals. Or like listening to
Isn't
Tim
that
Binnall and
fun?
then talking to Tim Binnall all the time. Like stuff like that where it's like, wow, like I feel like I'm in the mix now. So as kind of just happened organically, and here I am now. Um uh yeah, here on UFO Classified.
Oh,
I've been the
yeah,
big time.
baby. Dun, dun, dun. I know. We needed that theme music for that. But so okay, so how many books do you have in your library?
Um, it's like it's in a quantum state of flux. Uh, I have often daydreamed about like doing a big spreadsheet of all the books I have. Um, I would need to take a week off from work and just do nothing but that. Probably there's so many of them that I on my shelves I have books hidden behind books. Um,
I
so
can relate. I mean,
so I have no idea. Hundreds
so
and hundreds. Yeah.
do you alpha how do you arrange them? Do you alphabetize them or just random free flow?
Um, it, hmm. I have categories on my main bookshelf.
Okay.
So the bottom couple shelves are mostly parapsychology, um, and ghosts and ghost hunting and demons and exorcism and that kind of stuff. Then you move up and there's like a whole occult section, theosophy, ritual magic, witchcraft, all that stuff. Then you move up and then that's like my vintage UFO books. So like all my hardcovers of like Adamski and the contactees and like that's where like my Stanton Friedman books live and Timothy Good, like all the classics of
Yep.
ufology, ballet, they're all in there. And then you move up, it gets into cryptozoology and monsters and things like that. And then the top shelf is a little bit of a mix of just smaller volumes, so like smaller hardcovers and paperbacks. And then I've got random floating shelves here that are just paperbacks mostly. And I have
Dang.
a giant bookshelf in here that's not really sorted or organized, but it has. I guess I'll just have to look right now. Well, it's got some mysticism. It's got some. There's some Blavatsky up there. There's I see Forbidden Science is up there. Some Jenny Randall, some Colin Wilson, Buckminster Fuller, some Kenneth Anger. Yeah, so it's a mix of
Oh,
everything. So
wow, that sounds fascinating.
yeah,
That's really cool. I mean, I've got like a lot. I mean, clearly I've got, well, I mean, over 1,500 UFO books. And I mean, just it's insane. And then, periodicals and different things, but and like paranormal, parapsychology, a few cryptid, I mean, but I just not, I mean, yours is, that sounds really fun. I could probably spend weeks and weeks and weeks chilling out in your library.
yeah. It's not terribly organized. Maybe you could help me with that, but
You get well,
because then I
that's
have
a,
piles. There's also piles in the living room. I have doom
yep.
piles that are around.
But that adds character though.
Yeah, right.
Like
Yeah.
I have my stuff is in the middle of my, it's in my Pilates studio. And
Mm.
so when people come in here, to work out, like the first time they're here, they're like, Is there, are you, is this
Right.
woman okay? Which is actually, it's a great, way to start conversations. And I really love it because it gets people talking about different things. And it's, that without a doubt, pretty much everybody that comes in here eventually will share a story with me about
Mhm.
something that they've heard or seen or felt. And so it's really a fun way to reach out to people and then to give them some proper education,
Mhm.
to not fall for
Yeah,
the
that's the
disclosure nonsense.
right.
When you get people talking, the paranormal is not so para, is it? I mean, like everyone has an experience or a story, and it's almost a bad term for things people don't understand, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, to your point, or to both of your points, actually, it's just about shining your weird light. It's sometimes all it takes is wearing like a shirt that has a flying saucer on it, and then it starts a conversation with somebody that you've never met before. And then before you know it, they're telling you about their UFO sighting or the haunted house they grew up in or something like that. So, yeah, it's like making yourself available for that, I think.
I
Um,
know it's really fun. I mean, it is fun. Like I have to just say, I think everybody that listens to my show knows, and Jack especially knows, like I got so burned out. Like just because the UFO topic and the people involved in the UFO world or the online community can be really special, and
mhm.
quite nasty sometimes. And so it's like, oh my Lord. But then, it's like when people come in and you have those one-on-one interactions, or you're talking about things, or you're learning about like local folklore and things like that. It's just that's really that kind of reinvigorates me again. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because online is different. There's a whole lot of posturing online, and nowadays you really can't be sure if you're talking to a person or not when you're being hassled on social media. But um, I managed to get blocked by most of the really annoying people on UFO Twitter at some point. So my existence there was pretty peaceful after a while.
That is comforting. I mean, I knew like right when right when that whole thing kind of started, just stepping I was just watching how things were going, and I noticed that they were, coming after me even though I was not really, engaging with that, and I, refused to after a while. I'm just like, I this is so toxic, and like you said, you don't
Mhm.
know if it's a person or, what's happening and how why that community was manipulated and different
Yeah,
things. So yeah, makes me happy just to have my own little world. And I just got off Twitter altogether. But
yeah, me too. Yeah.
yeah, life is much better that way. So I think, but
Well, it's a shame because it's the only social media platform that ever really made sense to me. Like I could use that and I could be happy there. I could curate my feed the way I wanted to. All my friends were there, or most of them. All the people I like to follow were there. I'd interact with Jack there quite a bit, a lot of other people, and it's how I met a lot of people. And then I had to leave. Like, I pretty much it got to a point where it's like this is not useful for me anymore. Unless I pay money, I guess you have to pay money to get your blue check mark, and then it opens up these other benefits. For a while, I was still checking back in just to see if I had any messages or anything, and now I can't access my inbox there unless like I give them more information or like pay money or something. So
oh
it's like, well,
really?
I'm done. I guess I'm done.
Wow, I haven't been on for quite some time. So, and I know, I mean, I do miss the people, like you said, the interactions that I had. There were some really fun people that we were in a little community, and I really liked that. But I just at the end of the day, going onto a platform owned by a certain dark overlord did not do it for me.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, so you had to settle for one of the other dark overlords, and
I know. I mean, it's like picking from the bottom of the barrel. Like, what do you I don't know.
it's a
Yep.
frustrating time to be online trying to connect with people because I mean, anywhere you go, somebody has a problem with it. So it's blue skies, okay, I guess. Uh, I like it enough, but I mean, I think uh, it's unfortunate, but in recent years, I've kind of lost my taste for social media altogether. But I kind of still feel like I need to get on there at least so people like know about my show.
Right.
I feel
um,
kind of going through a transition, and I don't know what will be next, but yeah, it feels like a transition period into the next thing, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But AP, you, like you say, you would just write about things you found interesting. I can certainly relate to that. And you've written and done, you've had guests on your podcast show about UFOs and ghosts and strange experiences. Let's talk about ghosts and that just a little bit.
Sure.
And that kind of seems different. Like, I know people lump everything together a lot of the time, like the phenomenon or whatever. But like, I knew a systems engineer, and he was interested in the unexplained phenomena. And he used to say the ghost stuff is a little different than the UFO ambiguity, because like if you go in a place that you're investigating and you get a scream on an audio recording, it either happened or they're faking it. Like there's not a lot of leeway there, you know? Or you're filming and the chair just slides across the floor when you enter that room. Like that either happened or they faked it. There's, you know, not
Hmm.
a, like you still don't know what caused it. And along those lines, I read a book once by a woman in Europe that the book was about a haunting of the home she lived in, and she moved out of it. And I found the book quite interesting, and it was along those lines that I thought she's either just outright embellishing, or this is a really interesting story. You know, do you find that to be the case, that it's almost all or nothing with the poltergeist and stuff like that?
I do, but with the caveat that I've experienced it myself, so I know what it's capable of, and I'm beginning to develop the idea that poltergeist phenomena is encompasses a hell of a lot more than people ever give it credit for, and I think it's a lot weirder than like a spirit in a house or recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. I think it's a combination of things, and I think it's a lot weirder than people give it credit for. And I came into this a little bit because recently uh, on the show, on my show, I covered two of the weirdest cases that I know of, which is Jeff the Talking Mongoose and the Dawdleston messages, and those both are kind of like poltergeist adjacent or include poltergeist stuff, but also in one case a talking small mongoose animal, and the other one is messages traveling through time onto a computer that's not connected to anything. Um, so, but I think that a broad range of phenomena can be included in poltergeist stuff that people don't necessarily think of as poltergeist activity. They think of it as somebody had a UFO encounter and then started experiencing poltergeist phenomena in their house, or there's a haunting and then there's poltergeist activity attached to the haunting. It's like, no, I think the poltergeist activity is the thing, and it can manifest in a wide multitude of ways.
Yeah,
Um,
the concept of causality gets a lot of credit for things that it might shouldn't. Um,
right. Well, there's a
yeah,
lot of assumptions that are
yeah,
built into all of this. The main problem I have with ghosts broadly is that the assumption is ghosts are dead people. Um, and, and like, while that may be true sometimes, I don't think it's the case most of the time. you know? um, and it's kind of like ETH with UFOs. If you say UFO, people assume you mean aliens from another planet,
Hmm.
but really what you mean is anomalous things in the sky. So, you might mean aliens from another planet, but I stayed away from UFOs for a long time because I assumed I kind of felt like everybody just made that connection one to one, and it wasn't very interesting to me because I thought that was the least likely explanation for it. But ghosts are the same way. It's like I one of my main goals in writing or talking about any of this stuff is to make people think a little bit differently, maybe about some of their assumptions, or make them even recognize that they began with an assumption. Because it takes some coaxing sometimes to get people who have been watching like ghost hunters for years um,
It does.
realize,
Yeah,
yeah,
please go ahead.
realize that it might be something other than a dead person they're talking to. You
It
know,
it does take and I'm guilty of it too. I mean, it's not like I'm just talking about other people. As a human being, it's like a characteristic of being a human being to assume certain things, and if they're really seductive to me, I don't know I'm making an assumption. Like, I would rethink it if I knew I was making an assumption. And yeah, like with causality, you'll see that when someone's explaining something about a UFO sighting, and then into the story will be something that happened 6 months later or 9 months later. And it is curious that, like, so why do you associate that? Um, and in my experience, it would have been because I read paperback books that said the things were related by
Mhm.
men named Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs, and so,
Right?
yeah, I like need to go, okay, hold on, let's break this down a little further.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the thing about these subjects is there are no experts because none of it's ever been clarified or proven, right? So
Well, don't
that
tell
leaves
some
a
people like that, Mr. Big Bicep Zach Bagans, but whatever.
right.
He's like Stephen
Well,
Greer. He's like the Stephen Greer of the paranormal world, you know?
Dude,
yeah.
thank you, Aaron. AP, do you think we'll ever have some instruments or ways to quantify some of that, and like, what would it be that we're trying to quantify?
uh, well, no, I don't think you can. It's uh, I guess it depends on the phenomenon. See, I've been wrestling with a couple different ways to explain the way I think about it because I always think that there's usually uh, um, a variety of factors and variables that play in any given instance, paranormal or otherwise. There's a whole lot of things that need to happen in order for something to happen just the way it happened. And there needs to be an observer for it to have been recorded to have happened at all. And if you're thinking of time as linear, uh, the stuff can be quantified or it can at least be recorded as long as somebody was there to see it or hear it or experience it somehow. But but there's a variety of different things like I've been envisioning it lately as a extra temporal Rube Goldberg machine where various incidences are kicking off other incidences. You mentioned causality. I think that there is a causality to a lot of things, but I don't think it works on a linear time scale. So something that's happening now could be affecting something that happened 3 weeks ago, and that could be affecting something 100 years in the future. These things are all tied together, and uh, um, a web of causality that we could never in a million years be privy to. So
Wow. Whoa, dude, that's so deep.
yeah,
That really
no, I don't think
that really is though. I was tripping out. I'm tripping there.
Eric,
well,
That
you
is.
take synchronicity when you think about synchronicity. This is something that My good friend Stephanie Quick
Yeah,
and I
who's
have
in
talked.
chat.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah, we've talked extensively about. She's done experiments about, and we talk about it all the time. And it's, to me, it's always really puzzling when you think about the causal nature of things. I got into this a little bit in a blog post that I wrote for the anniversary of the X Files, because I was talking about causality, and it was a realization I came to because of an X Files episode. The Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose episode with Peter Boyle. He's a psychic, and he developed psychic abilities by obsessing over causality, like all the little events that had to lead to make something happen. And uh, years later, I thought that I came up with that idea on my own. I was like, maybe you can predict the future by just obsessing over all the little things that had to happen in order for an event to happen. And then when I revisited the X Files, I was like, oh, I just stole that from an X Files episode.
Well,
But it is an interesting way to think about it because, um, you know, I have a story handy in my head because I told it recently, but I was on a line of research with something I was working on, one of my long term projects, and uh, I found a book that ended up being relevant to it. But the thing is that I had only recently ever started interviewing people at all. I had interviewed Alan Greenfield, and Alan felt the need to bring up the lodge that he was a part of in the '90s, and it was the QBLH. And I was in like one random day, my wife said, "Why don't we go to that bookstore you like out in Western Mass?" And it's like a half an hour away or longer. It's an hour away from where I am. And so she randomly came up with the idea. We went to the bookstore because they have the best weird books and occult books. And I see the slim volume of the journal of the QBLH, which I never would have known what that was or looked at it or thought much about it had I not just talked to Alan Greenfield like the week before. Right.
wow.
So then I open it up and I'm reading about it, and it has a whole section on the English Kabbalah, which is derived from a cipher in Aleister Crowley's The Book of the Law, which played into something that I was looking at. And I had synchronicities with dates in that related to the things I was looking at. Um, and like that kind of blew my mind because I'm thinking all the things that had to go into effect for this book to end up in that bookstore at that time, and for me to have just talked to the man who hipped me to the existence of this lodge that I would never would have known about had I not actually spoken to him. And my wife having like a spur of the moment decision that maybe we should take a ride an hour away to go to a bookstore for me to find this, right? So flash forward like a year or two later, I'm interviewing Alan Greenfield again, and I wanted to tell him this story because I thought it was wild. I take the book out, and like his eyes are like, he's like, I've been
Wow.
looking for that. He's like, I don't have a copy of that anymore, and there's something in there that I need. So it's like,
How cool is that?
the whole thing comes like kind of full circle, right? And like this is, to me, it's a sign that you're magicking correctly. Um, if I can turn magic into a verb, but also it gives you an idea of the causal nature of things. Uh, there still is causality. It's just not our regular like Newtonian conception of it. It's not linear time. It's corkscrew time is what I like to call it. It's a rubber corkscrew that can bend and touch on itself sometimes.
It often feels more of a loop than an ongoing line. Yes, it does. A few different things come to mind. And in fact, it's somewhat synchronicitous that you brought up X Files, because when you were discussing your view of time before you mentioned X Files, what popped in my head was some of my favorite X Files episodes were the ones where people would explain what happened, and
Hmm.
they'd act out scenes from the different points of view that were all
Yep.
like completely different and in conflict of one another were, yeah, some of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, the episode Jose Chung's from Outer Space,
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
have Charles Nelson Riley is on there as the author,
Oh,
and
Yeah.
the cover is like
sorry.
a parody of Whitley Strieber's Communion, but the alien smoking a cigarette.
Oh, I need
Mulder.
to go watch that tonight.
It's
I
to
love
me,
Charles Nelson Riley.
yeah, to me that is the single best fictional representation of high strangeness I've ever seen. Because it's like Jack said, it's everybody gets interviewed, and you see a dramatization of their version of the story. So you get a million different versions of the story, and there's a million Easter eggs in that episode about picked from ufological history, and some really interesting cameos.
Okay.
Yeah. Think that's what the engineer meant. I interpreted when he told me UFOs are just so ambiguous, that somebody will tell you a story and then they'll tell you, well, there was this part I didn't even tell the investigator because it's so crazy. And it's just like they were there and that's what they say, and it's just witness testimony and all the problems with that. But he was like, if they just have a film clip in a room in a house that something was levitating, yeah,
Yeah,
like the footage is either good or it's not, and yeah, that's interesting as well. But you're certainly on point about the different perspectives from different people. And we very much, in my opinion, become a variable, as you alluded to, that either one of you could have the same experience I'm going to have tonight on this show and would interpret it and process it differently,
yeah, yeah. And as these kind of models and tropes and narratives take hold and get recorded and transmitted, and you see it ripple out, and other people start to develop the same ideas, it's just really interesting to pull on all these threads. It's kind of my favorite thing is connecting disparate topics, and contextualizing things in really strange ways, because I think it gets to the meat of some of this unquantifiable, uh like woo woo behind everything. you know um but yeah, UFOs are particularly nebulous. I think it's a very, to me, like, I don't fit in with disclosure people all that well,
That's
because
well, you wouldn't be on the show if you were. Just kidding.
right, well,
Sorry.
because
Did I
I
say that
don't
out loud?
care, right? Like like
Just kidding.
I know it's not UFOs per se, but I mean, there's a lot of hoopla going on at the moment because of this new documentary that exposes the Patterson Gimlin film
Oh,
as a
yeah.
hoax, allegedly. And like,
Yep.
to me, I'm not really interested. Like, I'm kind of reading what people are saying and listening to people. Smiles Lewis talked about it a little bit on his weekly roundup this week, and I like hearing the different perspectives. But to me, it's like, uh, I made one of my kind of impish little posts about it where I'm just like, the real hoax is the idea that there's hoaxes. This is- They're not. It isn't
I
really
like it.
hoaxes. And I mean, it's when you come from a magical thinking like I do, and an artistic background like I have, um, the hoaxes are part of the phenomena. They're inextricable from it. They're integral. Those are load bearing lies. You need those in there.
You reference the trickster in your last blog post, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's very, in my understanding of George Hansen's trickster, that's part and parcel of his representation of the trickster. yeah, I mean, you can't have everything else without the Jim Mosleys and Gray Barkers and right. I mean, that's makes the world go round.
Yeah, and when he talks and writes about like shamanistic practices and folk magic and ritual stuff, there's the idea of like the sham in shamanism, putting the sham in shamanism, where there's a little bit of hocus pocus and sleight of hand, prestidigitation that happens to dazzle people and bring them in to the state of mind where they're receptive to the real magic, the real paranormal stuff, and that's the environment where that stuff can actually occur now. So it's intermixed and it's got to be all together. So, to my thinking, if there really is a video of testing out the Patty suit in the Patterson Gimlin films that was hidden forever, I would not be I would not be opposed to the idea that they set out to film a guy in a Sasquatch suit and then a real Sasquatch that looked exactly like the suit walked by and they caught it on film.
I'd be a little concerned about why you kept the footage. I'd be a little
Mhm.
concerned. Like I always felt like the UFO model that happened to look like Ed Walters' UFO that was found in a house Ed Walters used to live in. I felt like that's pretty damning, but I won't completely throw out the idea that why would I keep that? You know, much
Right,
less get I owned it when I moved, you
right.
know.
I mean,
Well, I mean, that's
if I'm understanding the narrative correctly around the Patterson Gimlin thing, it's like the story is they burned the suit, but they saved the film that shows them trying out the suit. Like, why would you do that?
well, as we know, people do some interesting things, right?
Well, they do, and anything's possible, right? Like sometimes you'll never know the motivation behind stuff. So, yeah,
And someone has chain of custody and can show at least up to the point where they got their hands on it. And then you have, you know, qualified experts tell you the date of the film and all this kind of thing. Then the ball is in our court, someone's court, to make a hypothesis and prove otherwise, sure. But your point's well taken that it doesn't disqualify someone's experience for someone else to say that's been debunked, you know,
yeah,
not
yeah.
in itself. Well, I need the same chain of custody and verifiable evidence available for public review from the debunker that I need from the experiencer, you know.
Mhm. Well, I agree with that entirely too. And this is kind of the broader point I was getting to, where I don't tend to fit in with the people that want proof of everything because proof isn't necessary to me. I just like thinking about it and playing with possibilities. But but also I don't particularly enjoy suffering fools. So I really appreciate perspectives like yours, Jack, and both of you, because you have to, you do have to. I like logic. I like the logic of it. I like pulling it apart, and it's like, well, if we're going, we can speak from a perfectly rational, material perspective. Sure, this might all be bogus, right? Um, but I also like to entertain the extra possibilities because I've seen some extraordinary things. So, um,
And there's still a trickster, for lack of a better term, element to it. If there is no cryptids, let's just hypothetically say, placebos are very important. Ask any qualified researcher, medical doctor that does case studies and clinical trials. It it as I would the example of, you know, we're all going to experience this show differently. it changes you physiologically to believe certain things, and it's changing your reality. And I'm not qualified to say, you know, what's real, what's not real. As you know, I try to do some research. I try to show my work with it, but I keep a place in my heart for the John Keels that just wanted to go find weird stuff. And I think it's an altogether different thing if a qualified expert is conducting a clinical trial is altogether different from somebody that's just, I call them campfire stories. We're just sitting around the campfire talking about what we saw one time and what we think it is. That's, as you're suggesting, that's insulting to demand proof. You know,
Right.
that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, and because they're both good for different reasons, right? So I think where the
I don't,
major wedge comes for me with disclosure is that it's an appeal to authority that um, is also nebulous, where it's like we're expecting the government to not lie for once. But and it's also like none of the spooky stuff. You're not setting out to prove anything. You just want somebody else to tell you, right? So that's all stuff you can debunk, and I'm fine with that because it's not any of the spooky stuff I actually care about, right? So
That
yeah,
UFO disclosure is the ultimate example of
yeah,
we need to apply the same rules whether someone's saying something I like or dislike.
right,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
well, I
What
think for
thoughts
me,
here?
well, I think for me, well, I just have to go off about the disclosure stuff for sure for a second. But I mean, to me, it's so blatantly obvious. Well, obviously, there are two things going on with disclosure. It's like the grift, and then there are, I mean, people that have an interest in either exposing what we have in our arsenal, on behalf of a foreign adversary, and I mean, there are just so many aspects to it. And I think it's just so ridiculous to me that people who can't especially right now in this point in history, that people don't have an understanding that it is being used as for nefarious reasons, like in my opinion. So
yeah,
it really irritates me to be honest. So, but and I mean,
yeah.
with the UFO stuff, like I've had experiences that I can't explain in my life, and some some experiences that I had as I learned more about my visual acuity at night, or just different things I've been able to explain, but there's still things that I cannot explain that have happened to me. And so I know that it's those will be probably mysteries until the day I die. But then, like with the Skinwalker Ranch thing, to watch the way they prime people to,
Mhm.
you're going to go out to this, little crap ass piece of land, and then, you're going to have this experience, and so people go out there and they're seeing things that are completely mundane, but they're writing it off as this paranormal experience, and that to me is where it gets a little, I don't know. I think people can be kind of brainwashed and manipulated into to things that aren't necessarily in their greater good. So
Yeah,
those are my thoughts, having witnessed that whole thing and watching people kind of up in that area, especially who've been targeted and are thinking that they're seeing, like they're looking at the contrails passing in the sky, and it's a sign from their spirits. I mean, it's very, I don't know. It's kind of disconcerting to me, but
Sure.
those are my thoughts.
yeah. You got to be really careful because mind control is much realer and easier to do than people really want to think. And people have sway over other people, and the more influence you have, the more sway you have. So I've tried. I'm always very careful when I choose my words. I hope I am. I always endeavor to be very careful with the words I use because your choice of words can really positively or negatively impact the people you're talking to. and it's really easy to brainwash people into a belief. TV networks will do it without even thinking about it, as long as it's making money. If there's a TV show that promotes some problematic thinking about one thing or another, but it gets good ratings, they're just going to keep doing that, right? And I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
Sometimes this happens organically, and it doesn't have to be a nefarious hand behind it, other than capitalism. But uh, it's so a different nefarious hand than you were thinking of. So yeah, it's. I feel like we really need more people out there that are doing the opposite of brainwashing. I don't know what that is. Brain dirtying up. Let's dirty up some brains. We
Yeah.
need some messy brains out here.
Well, tell us about some of the messy brains you've come across that you have folks on your show that are artistic and talented and think outside the box. You write about a wide variety of topics. Give us one of your, I remember that time stories that entertain us, AP.
Wait, what am I telling a story about? I'm confused. I think we moved to a couple different things here.
Whatever you would like. What's one of your blog posts that you think that's a standout in your opinion?
Oh, okay. Well, there's one that I shared recently that I think kind of illustrates how I like to connect disparate things that are kind of weird, but they don't even necessarily have to be paranormal. Um, because it's a local history thing for me. It's actually one of my more favorite. All right, well, wow. Uh, oh man, shout out Stephanie Quick. That's like a Stephanie Quick thing. um, they one of my favorite things that I've probably written is this piece that I reshared recently called "Doomsday Predictions Ain't Rocket Science," because it's the 100th anniversary, or was the 100th anniversary of the first successful liquid fueled rocket launch by Dr. Robert Goddard in my hometown of Worcester, Massachusetts. Um, it was actually, the launch itself was in Auburn, Massachusetts, just outside of Worcester, but we'll take it anyway because Goddard was born here and he developed the rocket at Clark University in Worcester. So what was interesting about this to me, this was like something I had to piece together, and it plays into what you had mentioned earlier, Jack, about traveling around and finding weird places to go and look at stuff. There's a spot in Worcester up on Airport Hill that is called God's 10. Where did my speech go? God's 10 acres. This was a parcel of land that was owned by a man named Solomon Parsons, and he was like a hermit up there on Airport Hill. And in his time, there were no airplanes, so it wasn't called Airport Hill. It was called Rattlesnake Hill because a lot of rattlesnakes lived up there with this hermit and his little temple that he built, because he was a preacher too, and he kind of had his own little temple and hermitage, because he was a Millerite originally, or a Millerite adjacent. So the Millerites, it was American millenarian cult, or people might know about them. A very popular idea that the world was going to end back in 1844, and they were all ready for it, and a lot of people would dress in all white and go sit on the roofs of their houses and wait for the end times when they're going to ascend, because the eschaton was upon them. And then lo and behold, the world didn't end, and a lot of them were very disappointed, and it's known as the Great Disappointment. Um, anyway, a stone's throw from God's 10 acres is where Robert Goddard, the Rocketeer, grew up. And when he was a child, his parents asked him to go cut down some of the branches in the cherry tree in the yard. While he was up there, he started daydreaming about ascending and leaving Earth's atmosphere and going all the way to Mars. And that was kind of the beginnings of his fascination with rocketry and trying to leave Earth. Like the space mission was his big thing. So he had this vision and he marked it down in his journal and he celebrated this day every year as the beginning of his interest in rocketry. Was this like vision, this daydream vision, but it was a powerful vision in his while he's sitting up in a tree, which was on the anniversary of what was supposed to be the end of the world back in 1844, where Solomon Parsons, you know, probably half a mile, three quarters of a mile uphill from where Goddard was later, was waiting for the end of the world and trying to ascend up there, right? Now, Parsons continued after the disappointment. He had his own little congregation. People would come up there. He's an interesting kind of like very local, obscure figure, just like a eccentric figure that stayed up there forever. And he granted the land that he bought to God. So there's a deed carved into rock up there that deeds that land over to God, and that's why it's called God's 10 acres. So God currently owns it. Um, God hasn't maintained it very well. I can tell you that much because it's pretty dirty up there. There's a lot of broken glass and stuff. What's really
Wow.
interesting about all of this, though, is obviously if I'm up there looking into this land of a man named Parsons, I'm thinking like, I wonder if there's a connection to Jack Parsons. And I'm thinking, well, no, Parsons is probably a common enough name that there wouldn't be, right? So I started doing some research eventually. I think it was the second time I went there. I got home and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look into this. Turns out Solomon Parsons' ancestor was um, his ancestry was mostly men of the cloth, actually, but him and his brother came over from England, and his these two brothers, one of their lineages goes down to Solomon, and the other one goes to Jack. So this guy actually was related to Jack Parsons, not a direct ancestor. He never had children, but but he was kind of like a second cousin, like four times removed or something. So you have this like weird visionary experience of leaving Earth, which eventually leads to the first liquid stage fueled rocket, which is tangentially related to this hermit up on the hill that was involved with the original doomsday prediction, looking to leave Earth as he's being brought up into heaven, who's uh, who has a relative later that develops the first solid fuel rockets.
Right.
Right. So there's this whole through line of like rocketry leaving the Earth, visionary experiences, eschatological beliefs, and stuff like that. Um, and of course, in both cases with Goddard and Jack Parsons, they really were interested in leaving Earth, and this their inventions helped us get to the moon. They helped NASA develop the propulsion to leave Earth's orbit, or atmosphere anyway. But the powers that be wanted to use it for war. So I mean that plays into the whole apocalyptic kind of eschatological thing as well. Um, Not to mention Goddard was influenced by science fiction because he was reading H.G. Wells. So you had this whole, as was Jack Parsons later. So I don't know. It's one of my favorite things that I ever wrote. I think I would do well to expand upon it. I originally wrote it to submit to a magazine, which no longer exists. So I had to keep it under 2,000 words, but I could easily expand that out. But yeah, it's one of my favorite things I wrote, I think.
Yeah, good for you. That
Wow. That's cool. I mean, how fascinating. Just all the
Right.
different elements that you were describing and then the connection, there that you didn't
Yeah.
think was, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How
I mean,
fascinating.
and it's one of those things where you see a name and you think, well, it couldn't possibly be, you know, they're probably not related. But I mean, the thing that clicked in my head was like, wait, I've read Jack Parsons' biography before, and his ancestors were from Massachusetts, so maybe, like, you know,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
How cool.
But
Okay,
this
so
is the kind of thing I love doing, and that one was kind of that felt uh like kind of kismet that all came together the way it did because it was You don't find something like that every day, but I try.
Oh, that is really, really cool. And I have to ask you because I want to go back here. When you mentioned Jeff the Talking Mongoose, I would like to go there for a moment because that is a really fascinating story. So will you just take it away from there and talk a little bit about that?
Oh man, I could talk about Jeff all day. The
Or
Dalton
Jeff,
Spook
excuse me. Yeah,
himself,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
Please.
eighth wonder of the world. um, yeah, I think of Jeff as being just a prime example of poltergeist activity. But I think there's a layered thing to him where there's more than one thing going on. Like I think that it's possible that there's a mischievous land spirit there that is energized somehow by the poltergeist activity that was going on, right? So I think there's more than one thing that could be happening. But Jeff is uh, uh, a hilarious case, a very trickstery case. I've talked to people that said they were terrified by the Jeff story when they first heard it, like as a kid. And I'm like, how? It's a mongoose. It's a talking mongoose.
Yeah, well, there is that.
It's great. He like swears at people and throws things at them. Like, what's not to love about it? It's just, I'm endlessly amused by the Jeff the Talking Mongoose case. So if people don't know what the hell we're talking about, this was back in the late 1920s and 1930s in Cashin's Gap, part of the Isle of Man. And I had a researcher named uh, Gail Fiddler on my show to talk about it because she has gone to the Isle of Man a bunch of times to check things out. And we were operating from the assumption that if Jeff was some kind of spirit, that he might still be there somewhere, like hiding out, right? So I'm hopeful that that's the case, but uh, in our conversation, we kind of conjectured that the man who lived at Cashin's Gap with his daughter and wife, Jim Irving, may have had some background with occult practice, and we wondered
Mm.
if there's some kind of, and it's just a very obscure mention in Harry Price's book about the whole thing, which is called The Haunting at Cashin's Gap. He mentions what he calls Hebrew signs and sigils that were painted on the chicken coop outside. And it makes a note that Jim had occasion to in his professional capacity to work with a lot of Jewish people, and that's probably why. And then he doesn't go into it more than that. But I'm
Mm.
thinking like in ritual magic, a lot of that is derived from like Kabbalah and like heavily tied to like mystical Judaism stuff. So I wondered if there were like magic seals and symbols that he had painted on parts of his property and was maybe doing some kind of evocation. I mean, I can't prove that, but it wouldn't be beyond the pale in the early 20th century. He was a piano salesman, so he would have, his customers that he traveled to see would be musicians and artists, many of whom were part and joined occult lodges. Like I think the the leader of one of the offshoots of the split Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was like an actress in her day. She was a well-known actress. But you also had people like Ethel Calhoun, who was a surrealist artist, Leonora Carrington, another artist, uh, a lot of musicians and visual artists and people like that are wrapped up in occult stuff as well. So uh, Yeats, the poet,
Mhm.
so it wouldn't be beyond the pale for a piano salesman to be in touch with magicians, like wizards and stuff. So, but as for the case itself, um, it, I absolutely fascinating. Like people put a lot of emphasis on the daughter, Lori, that she may have been like a ventriloquist and throwing her voice so that people would hear the Jeff voice. Um, Price himself in the book makes note of the fact that this is physically impossible because actual magicians and ventriloquists, when they do that, are directing your attention visually. They're not actually throwing their voice anywhere. They can't make their voice appear at a different place. That's not possible. So, by virtue of the fact that you're holding a dummy up and moving its head and looking at it, you're drawing attention that way. It's misdirection. Ventriloquism comes out of stage magic, so that it's a visual misdirection that your mind matrixes it in a way that the sound must be coming from the dummy, right? So,
Mhm.
um, so the idea that Vori was creating the voice and making it come out of a wall while she's sitting there is improbable in the extreme. So most of the manifestations were like sometimes stones being thrown. Jeff would spit at people from inside the walls, make noises, rattle things, sing, um, but but often wouldn't do it when it really counted. When investigators were there to check it out, he'd suddenly be in town for a while. So
And so for people that haven't heard this story, and I'm sure that there are quite a few, people that are listening tonight that have no idea, about it, but like what were some of the messages that he was conveying?
well, he said that he would split the atom, which I find to be a really interesting thing to say in the 30s. Um, he said, "I am a freak. I have hands and feet. If you saw me, you'd be terrified, petrified, turned into a pillar of salt." Um, uh, he was known to threaten to throw bricks at people. Sometimes he'd just say rude things to people. In Price's book, it's really fun. Some of my favorite things were that Mrs. Irving would would be a little bit. She was kind of like the bad cop parent in the situation. She had to put her foot down sometimes if Jeff was being mischievous and not feed him. They would leave him food and he
Oh.
would take it, right? So like cookies and things. So then he would go begging from Jim, and so it's in the book where he'd be going like, "Hey, hey Jim, how about some grubbo, huh?"
Oh god. Oh
And
lordy.
come to be called a mongoose? Did they put eyes on a mongoose, or how did that come about?
Well, they saw him. I mean, they would see him sometimes, but only briefly. Um, the thing that always fascinated me was like he was able to like, grab things and hold things and throw things. So I always pictured him as being looking like a normal mongoose, but having human hands on the front.
Lord.
So right.
It
Um,
vaguely reminds me of the story of Carrie Mullis, that he was a scientist in California and credited with discovering uh, DNA testing that won him a Pulitzer Prize, I believe. I could be wrong about which prize he won, but he was an award-winning scientist and um, came up with the ideas for his molecular research while hanging out at a cabin he had that people reported strange experiences. And one of his that he reported was that he was walking down a path near dark when he saw a glowing raccoon standing on the path, and the raccoon said, "Good evening, doctor." And that was the last thing he remembered until he was walking on a road some distance away the next day. And those were the types of experiences people would have, according to Dr. Mullis, who was an award winning scientist around that cabin. And it reminds me a bit of that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the idea that an animal that's not supposed to talk would talk to you is it's so strange, and for a mongoose to be on the Isle of Man would also be strange, except there were mongoose. I guess that's the plural. I think I found that out once. It doesn't sound right though to me. But somebody had let them loose as pest control for their farm at one point. So there actually it wasn't like unheard of that there would be a mongoose on the Isle of Man. But they're not, naturally from there. Jeff would claim that he was about 82 years old during the time of his haunting because he told them his birthday when he was born in India, that like 80 some odd years prior. So um, uh,
There's
the
implications with the causality again, that like I'm envisioning they see something scurrying in the shadows, they interpret to be a mongoose, and then they're associating it with the voice. Or did they ever like have the mongoose pull a chair up to the table and ask for some biscuits or something?
all right, I just missed what you said just now. That sucks. This is live. Hold
I
on.
was saying
Oh
that
no. Crap.
Makes it fun.
My audio
It's
is
half the joy of
crashing
it.
out. Give me a second. I'll
Uh-oh.
fix this. I'll
Sure.
fix it.
time. I had seen a lot
Mhm.
of the Jeff the Mongoose story here, but I didn't ever really follow through and read it. You know what I mean? This is like the most I've ever been told about it, actually.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. It really, I don't know, but
Okay, now I can hear you.
oh, good. Okay, and now your voice sounds very powerful. I mean, it sounds.
I was saying that the causality comes up again. Like I'm kind of envisioning there's people that see something scurrying in the shadows. Some of them may think it's a mongoose. And then some disembodied voice they then may associate with what they is it like that? Or do they claim a mongoose like literally confronted them like Carrie Mullis's raccoon and had to say?
Yeah, but I mean, Jeff would describe himself as a mongoose, but also he would say, "I'm an earthbound spirit in the form of a mongoose." So, I mean, he would almost kind of talk in riddles.
Sure.
But yeah, I tend to think it can be more than one thing, right? Like, suppose there was some kind of fey-like entity on the Isle of Man that was indigenous there, but only had some level of corporality. And some mongoose was brought there and died, and its spirit hung around, and those two non-corporeal forms merged to form another entity. And then you bring a somewhat lonely and isolated teenage girl into the mix, and you get that kind of poltergeist attribute that comes off of her, energizes the whole thing, and it turns into like a cohesive entity, sort of. It's very confused about what it is, right? I mean, I came up with a similar idea about another isle off of the UK, the Isle of Wight, where you had the Sam the Sandown Clown entity. Erica, do you know this story?
No, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you really got me intrigued right now.
Well,
Let's hear it.
I got dragged into this one. I've always kind of thought it was an interesting story. It's not one I grew up with. It's something that was printed once in the Bufora Journal in 1977, which was 5 or 6 years after it happened, and forgotten about. It was only kind of in the last decade and a half or so that people have rediscovered the story, and he's gotten a whole new life just from podcasters and bloggers and content creators now. And on my show, I interviewed Paul A.T. Wilson, who claims to have met and gotten further stories from the girl that encountered Sam back in the day. So basically, this was two children at kind of a golf course on the Isle of Wight. They're off on a nature trail around a golf course, and they encounter a being that they described as looking somewhat like a clown, right? Um, he's kind of like a scarecrow clown. Some people describe him as being like a robot clown. He's got a big white head that's perfectly round, with painted on features, so his mouth doesn't move when he talks. He has wood that sticks out from beneath his shabby clothing as though he's made out of wood. He's only got 3 fingers on his hands, and anytime he talks, he's using like what looks like a microphone attached to a box, but his mouth doesn't move. So these two kids encounter him, and then he's calling them on the through this microphone thing to come over and talk to him because they run away from him when they see him.
God, yeah.
Well, he's got this notebook, and he communicates kind of through the notebook a little bit, and he writes down, I am all colors Sam. So they start calling him Sam, and it turns into this whole like confusion because he's like, well, Sam's not really my name, it's just a name I like, but he likes to go by all colors, and he invites them into his rickety little tin shack.
Hell no.
And they go inside, and it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, kind of like in Doctor Who, So he's apparently got a weird little TARDIS parked off the edge of this golf course.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. And there's not that much more to that story. At least there wasn't for a long time. I mean, he does some apparent magic tricks for them. He puts a berry into like kind of in his ear, or where you would imagine an ear would be. And then it rolls around in his head and comes out from one of his eyes before he eats it. It's like he turns like a ceramic mug into a seagull at one point. So it's a bizarre story told by children, and
dang.
Yeah, and it ended up in the British UFO research association newsletter. But yeah, this story got kind of popular, and it's something that clowns are a running theme for me, whether I like it or not. I wrote about clowns pretty early on, and I've never been able to get away from clowns. I've just accepted my fate at this point, that I'm kind of a clown guy. So
well, that's the story of all stories. Good Lord Almighty.
Right.
I mean, how many times did they see this thing, clown?
Well, for all anybody knew for the longest time, it was only that one encounter, because they left and they went away, and they thought of him as a ghost. They just said, they asked him if he was a ghost, and he's like, well, I guess, but not really. Like he never had a good answer for anything. According to Paul Wilson, he met this girl whose name in the article was Faye. It's not her real name. Everybody had pseudonyms in the article, but according to him, she had like 4 or 5 further encounters with Sam. He just kept popping back up at random points in her life.
Oh no. Oh Lord.
And those stories are fascinating. And that was my most controversial episode, I think, because on the YouTube version of it, there's like tons of comments where people are like, this guy's a liar, I don't trust him, he didn't meet Faye, he's just making it up, all this other stuff. I was getting like emails from people trying to like turn me against him, and
wow.
like, yeah, and I'm like, well, basically what I was explaining at the beginning of this interview, you guys are barking up the wrong tree. You really want me to, I don't know what they wanted from me. I'm like, do you want me to do a public rebuttal and read all your arguments? Or I don't know. It's a weird story, man. It's a real weird story. I don't know, like, if you want to spend your time poking holes in this, you got more time than I do to spend on things.
One of the things that makes me think of that is interesting is Bufora, I think
Yeah.
the association, the British Association you were mentioning, they've done some good work in some areas. They enacted a moratorium against using hypnosis on UFO witnesses decades ago, which I give them a thumbs up for that.
Mhm.
And understand why that story would be associated with UFOs. So was Carrie Mullis's that I
Right.
described. People wanted Mullis to get hypnotized to try to fill in that missing time. And to his credit, he would not. He was kind of like you about that. He says, I've got a nice little story here, talking raccoon. I don't know what happened. That's just that.
Right.
That's the story, as far as he
Mhm.
was concerned. And it does take me back to that causality of in my opinion, I don't see a reason to associate that. It reminds me of Martin Cannon. He's
Mhm.
put forth that I'm not sure that reported alien abductions and high strangeness have anything to do with a literal flying saucer.
Right.
He's put that forth, unless you report the flying saucer came and landed, and then it sounds more like a case of sheds that don't adhere to properties of physics.
Spooky sheds. Yeah, well, I mean, the reason it came to Bafura is because the father of Faye's father had had several UFO sightings that he was reporting, and that her story got lumped in with it, right? So, um,
Like
yeah,
I said, I can see where it would, the same
right.
as where Carrie Mullis's story would, because high strangeness gets lumped in with,
Mhm. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And to your point about Bafora, I mean, I think Jenny Randall's was pretty early on that whole hypnosis is no good thing, and she made herself the subject of it, right? And she was in charge of Bafora
If
for quite a while. Yeah.
okay, sorry, sorry, you just totally cut off on my end.
Oh, I was just saying, Jack was talking about how Bufora stopped using testimony from hypnosis, and Jenny Randall's was, I think, instrumental in that. She made herself the subject of a hypnosis experiment that kind of ended up proving that it doesn't help retrieve memories, you know. Um, and
Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
And I want to go back because I want to hear more of these stories that she had, the other encounters with this thing.
Ah, right. Okay. Well, I think the most interesting one to me was, she was like a teenager and she's like partying with her friends in the park at this point, and but hadn't really imbibed much of anything. And then all of a sudden, like Sam steps out and she's alone in the park with Sam, and it's almost like she just kind of entered into like another reality in an instant, right? And then all these, she can see other things that look like Sam, like, but she can't see them very clearly, and she can kind of hear them talking to each other, you know, because Sam had alluded to the fact that there are other entities around that are like him, you know. So there was this whole, like, sounds like a crazy hallucinatory experience that she snaps out of, and she says, "How long was I gone?" And all her friends are, from their perspective, no time had passed, right?
Oy,
And they're like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "How much did you have to drink?" And she's like, I haven't drank anything, you know, like." And so they made fun of her, and she just left it at that. Um, but that seemed really cool to me. It's like, he has some kind of weird control over time and space. Because really, if you can control one, you ought to be able to control the other, is the way I look at it. So
That's a story I've never heard. That's crazy. That's
Well, yeah,
interesting.
you'd have to listen to the episode because
I'm
Paul
going
goes
to.
through the whole story, and I think he did a presentation publicly of these further tales of Sam the Sundown Clown somewhere in the Isle of Man, and he had talked about recording it and putting it up online for free somewhere. So I would think that that's up somewhere by now, but I don't know. I haven't talked to Paul in a bit, so this was last summer that I had the show with him. So yeah,
So how long ago did the sightings take place? The
it
alleged sightings?
spanned. The first one was I think 1971 or so, or 73, right? Yeah. So and I mean that's where I entered into it way before I became aware of Paul's work and all of that. I had this idea because I'm thinking like Isle of Wight. Um, the only reason I know the name the Isle of Wight, it's like, well, like there's the Who live at the Isle of Wight, and there's like
Yeah.
the Isle of Wight festival and stuff like that. So I started looking into that festival, and this is another blog post I wrote where it seemed to me that like we always think of hauntings as being a result of traumatic death, right? We talk about like places like Gettysburg. If you're in Gettysburg, there's ghosts of Civil War soldiers who died horribly there. But why wouldn't there also be like emotional imprints uh of like a more fun event like the Isle of Wight Festival, right? So I wrote this whole post kind of connecting like what if Sam is like a psychedelic uh projected residue from this festival. He's just kind of like a Frankenstein of leftover hallucinations that wandered off into the woods after the
Yay, yay,
festival was
yay.
over,
I mean, oh.
right?
I couldn't even make that up. I mean, that would
Well,
be
The
yeah,
time
I forgot what I called it in the blog post. I had a good name for it. I think it was like,
ooh.
yeah, but yeah, people can look that one up
Oh yeah,
because
I'm
I,
going to
I kind of
tonight.
took apart the sonic and psychedelic and occult themes of music at the time, right? So you had bands like Black Widow performing there and stuff like that. So
Black Widow. I've not heard of Black Widow.
I think that was the band that I'm thinking of.
Oh,
I might have got it wrong now. It's been a while. But they had a song called Come to the Sabbath. And it's like,
oh, good.
yeah, come to the Sabbath. Come to the Sabbath. Satan's there.
Oh, that's catchy.
It's a good song. Yeah.
Oh my, you've given me so many roads to go down tonight. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
This is crazy. And I've got to ask you because Rachel wanted me to ask you about the gnomes.
The gnomes. What about the gnomes?
The Wallaton gnomes case.
Oh,
Do you
the
know anything
Walton
about them?
gnomes.
You're like, gnomes? Which
Those
gnomes?
witch gnomes. Oh man. Yes, the Walton gnomes. That's one I haven't written about yet. I mean, I probably should at some point. Um, it's funny because my good friend Steve Mills, aka Stardog, over in Coventry, UK, and I were talking about the Wallaton gnomes at one point, and I think that's one of his favorites. He's like, I would love to see that. He just thinks it's the funniest thing, and basically gnomes riding around in little cars, like a, co- a girl in a park just saw these gnomes driving around in tiny gnome-sized cars and speeding around, and she drew like pictures of them. Uh, I would have to like brush up on it, but it's something I would like to write about. I would assume that those gnomes were Shriners. Uh, I would have to. My main question would be: were they wearing like the conical hats, or were they wearing fezzes? Is that-
There are more likely explanations to some of this than others. Granted, yes.
Right. But I love these accounts that come from children, really. Like the Cottingley Fairies is another one that I just
Yeah.
really love. I always find them charming, and I think I think children are more accepting of things in a way that allows for it to manifest. And because nobody's going to believe them, who's to say it didn't, right?
Fatima started with children, right?
What's that?
Fatima started with children, right?
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
think,
Yeah.
think it began and ended with the stories of children, right? Were there any?
Well, the major event where like hundreds of people saw the miracle of the sun or
Okay, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of people involved with that, but the Marian apparition part of it was once a month for like a year leading up to that. Might not have been a full year, but every month on the 13th, the three children would meet the apparition. And there's other Marian apparition cases like that in France and other places that they appear to children. I mean, there's a purity to children, right? That's
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of when the Sam the mechanical clown or whatever wanted the kids to go in the shed. Erica says, "Oh hell no!"
right.
I mean, God.
My friend, the entity is
Right.
coming down. It's like, oh,
Come to the shed. I mean, I can't even. I've got to
Well,
like maybe. I need to draw this. This is what I need to paint tonight.
I
And then
have
it's
drawn
gonna
it
haunt
before.
me.
I'll send you the blog
Ooh.
post so that you have an
Okay.
idea, but because there's a
Okay.
couple of visual
Ooh.
representations. But closer to me, you had much more sinister clowns. So like Sam is nothing compared to the clowns that near me.
Oh God. Okay, you guys. I need another creepy clown story.
But yeah, well, this is the Phantom Clowns in Boston, Massachusetts in the 1980s.
they're
The
a whole
Phantom Clown Wave.
yeah, they're a whole thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Clown wave. Good Lord.
And these were clowns trying to lure kids into like sketchy unmarked vans and stuff.
Oh hey. Okay. I mean, but
Now, what made this really weird, as opposed to just your regular Germain clowns riding around and beat up old unmarked vans with trying to lure kids into them, was that clown reports also popped up in Rhode Island and then Pennsylvania and then Kansas over the course of a couple weeks. And
oh,
this is a time before national news was traveling on things like the internet. Like the news basically had no way of really traveling the way it did. And the only reason that this was tracked at all was because Lauren Coleman was part of a news clipping service and people would send him weird stories from all over. So he was able to track this progression. And Lauren lived closer to Boston at the time. So he was really familiar with the initial stuff. But then became privy to these other cases that were happening elsewhere, right? And they just kind of petered out. So by the time you had clowns popping up in like 2016, that was a less remarkable, I think. I mean, most of those cases were some school kid's parent trying to spook his kids at the bus stop or something. A lot of those were found out, but
oh my God, are you kidding? A parent like seriously wanted to. They did what? They did?
Yeah, 2016. There were a whole lot of cases like that.
They'll like dress up in clown suits and like run out of the woods on the interstates and stuff like that. It's crazy, Erica. If I understand correctly, and rest assured, I'm not claiming to be a clown expert here, but if I understand correctly, Lauren Coleman believes he can tell the difference. Am I right here? between a jerk that's trying to scare motorists, and he terms it phantom clown reports, right? That he thinks
Well,
it's a
right.
paranormal sighting of a clown.
Well, yeah. Much like J. Allen Hynek, he has a scale for this. It's the clown encounter scale, which is
because of course he does.
Mhm.
but yeah. So he categorizes them, I believe, as phantom clowns, killer clowns, and there's another category. But yeah, phantom clowns are very specific. They have to kind of vanish without a trace. So if somebody gets caught doing it, or there's a photo of them, even that doesn't really count as a phantom clown, because the phantom clowns are just kind of like the ones in Boston. The police just brushed it off as mass hysteria. They were like, there weren't any clowns, right? Because the way the van was described too, it sounded like it was falling apart and didn't have plates on it or anything. Like that would have stuck out like a sore thumb in Brookline, where these things started, you know.
Clowns, and I'm not being facetious here. Phantom clowns, they're the ones that talk to you from the sewer, basically, right?
Well, no, phantom clowns are what I described. I guess Pennywise would be considered one, but it's interesting to note that the Phantom Clown wave happened prior to it as a book being released.
May have influenced it, yeah.
In fact, yeah, Stephen King was a reader of like Fate magazine and stuff like that, so he may have picked up on it. And he's New England, you know. Stephen King's a New Englander, just like me.
Right.
And so, like, I mean, wow.
Well, so I went on an expedition to close the clown portal. Where
that is good. I'm glad that you're doing that.
Well,
Please
I
close
did
that
it.
portal.
I did it, but I don't think it worked, so I have to go try again.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. I can tell you what I'm going to be dreaming about tonight, and it's not going to be it's going to be a creepy clown. A phantom clown. Oh God. I mean, like,
Well,
were people like concerned though that this was actually a freaking homicidal maniac running around?
it was a full-blown panic, really. I mean, there
Oh
were
my
multiple
God.
clowns. It was supposed to be a van with a couple clowns in it, right?
Oh,
And then there were clowns in the park and stuff like that. I have a whole clown file with all the news, the original news clippings. But Lauren wrote this all up for, I think he wrote it up for Fate at the time. Yeah, it was Fate magazine. So I have that original article, and I've talked to him about it before. In fact, at the International Cryptozoology Museum, I asked him, "Why don't you have a clown in the museum? Like you ought to have like a phantom clown exhibit. You're the one that wrote that and came up with that term." And he said he used to, but they had to take it down because it scared people too much.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He got complaints about it, so.
Oh my Lord. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, like, what was that little doll that was the Warrens had?
Oh, Annabelle?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that thing you could just put behind a box for all I care. It's a creepy
But
little.
the real Annabelle is just an old Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah, it's just a thought behind it, though. It's just a little creepy. I don't know. That's dang.
Well, possessed dolls are. I would love to see a version of The Conjuring that's actually a Raggedy Ann doll. I think that would be it would be an interesting experiment to see how that comes off.
Well, maybe you've got a new calling in life.
Yeah.
You need to do your own version of.
Mm.
I don't know. What did you? And speaking of the Warrens, because you had to. I mean, you mentioned them, and I'm just like, they were so fascinating to me. Like, what are your thoughts on them?
Well, I'm glad this came up because my thoughts on the Warrens are incredibly complicated because like you, I always found them fascinating. I liked them. I wanted to like them a lot. Like there's a very appealing thing about like the whole good versus evil exorcism kind of idea. And I was raised Catholic, sort of. Um, I got kicked out of CCD once or twice, and then I didn't never got as far as
Good for
confirmation.
you.
Are the Warrens The Conjuring?
Ed and Lorraine.
Yeah.
They
The real Ed and Lorraine, though, were very different from what's in the movies. I saw them give a talk when I was about 12 years old,
oh my gosh.
and I didn't want to go. My mom dragged me to it. She thought it would be like a fun Halloween time thing, and I remember being like incredibly disrespectful and holding up like I was trying to read my X-Men comic. Um, and this is how I figured out how old I was, because I ended up finding that very issue that I was reading that night. And yeah, I would have been about 12 when that was a new comic. But because I remember it got snatched away from me and one of the staples ripped so that the cover wasn't on quite
Ugh.
right. And that's
It's
not
traumatic.
cool when you're a comic collector. But yeah, I saw them give a talk, and I remember even 12-year-old me listening to Ed Warren go on about the Ouija board and how evil it is, and you shouldn't put one of these into your house. He goes, if you look at the box for the Ouija board, what does it say right here? Made in Salem, Massachusetts. What else do I have to say?
Oh
And
my
I'm just like,
Lord.
wait, so you're telling me that anything manufactured in Salem, Massachusetts is automatically of the devil? Like that makes absolutely no sense, right? So other than that though, I mean, I came around to liking them watching the presentation. Ed in person had this kind of like avuncular affect when he was talking to a crowd. He definitely lapped up the attention. They just seemed like a nice older couple that like it was kind of fun to hang out with for a minute, listen to tell a few stories. I rolled my eyes pretty hard at a bunch of it. Some of it seemed like obvious pandering for attention. They're like, you've heard of the Amityville case, right? That was us, we investigated that. And but I mean, over time there have been revelations that came out about Ed that are really gross. There's stories that have come out about a young girl that was staying with them,
Ugh.
that he was apparently in a relationship with, that was very inappropriate, and I guess Lorraine knew about it. If you talk to anybody that's a Warren fan or anybody from that camp, the family and their legacy, they're very defensive about that and say it's not true. So I mean, the movies paint this picture of them almost like superheroes.
Right.
And I kind of like the movies in the sense that like it's a little bit of what I wanted Ed and Lorraine to be when I was a kid. And it's really not what they are. Really, there's a whole lot of religious propaganda that's another layer to it. And this is when you see Zach Bagans yelling at demons on TV, when you see any of the ghost hunters on TV, that's all within the lineage of
You're right.
the Warrens, and especially where the demonic stuff comes in. There was a concerted effort after Vatican II to turn some section of the church back to the tradition, a very ultra conservative Catholicism. Part of the plan was convince as many people as possible that they're prey to the devil at any given moment and they'll come running back to the church, right? So Ed and Lorraine weren't just Catholic. They were friends with Bishop McKenna down in Connecticut, near where they lived. And he was one of these. He wasn't really a bishop. He made himself a bishop of his own little offshoot church, which was traditionalist Catholic, that didn't acknowledge Vatican II, didn't acknowledge the Pope, right? So it's basically a Catholic cult. So all of that is to say that it's a very complicated legacy, but it's a legacy that you have to acknowledge and you have to understand as part of the history because it plays into all of this other stuff. For what it's worth, when it comes to ghosts and ghost hunting, I like parapsychology. I like parapsychologists that look at it. I like looking at stuff that was written from journals from like the SPR or the American Society for Psychical Research, all of that stuff. I like people that try to apply some kind of science to what they're doing. I had Lloyd Auerbach on my show, and that was great for me because he was like a hero of mine when I was a kid that I didn't end up being disappointed by later. Um, and as a capstone to this whole Warren thing, given what Ed said about Salem, I guess this comedian Matt Rife that bought that whole collection is trying to set up a new Warren Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. So I'm sure they'll be rolling in their graves over that one.
That is awesome. That is really, really awesome. Did you ever interview Barry Taft?
No. I'm friends with him on Facebook. I should hit him up. I like his book, Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, I think it's called. There's pictures in that book of anomalous light forms captured at the home of one of the poltergeist agents that he was studying. It's the only time I've ever seen light forms that looked a photo of a light form that looks like what I encountered when I was a kid. So it's the only time I've ever seen that. So I would like to talk to Barry Taff at some point.
I can't imagine. I mean, I would think that he's getting up there, and not look, we're all not getting up there, but that he's fairly old, and I don't know. Last time, it's been years since I've talked to him, and he was on my show. I can't remember if it was once or twice, but fascinating individual, and I know very controversial as well. He kind of, yeah, he was very controversial, fellow,
right?
For sure, but. Yeah,
as many of the people are in these.
Oh, Lord, I'm telling you, there are some strange characters that we've all come into contact with over the years. That's for sure. But I like. I mean, it's fun though. Like I love talking about killer crazy phantom clowns and things. It's such a refreshing break from UFOs. I can tell you.
Well, there is overlap. There are some UFO stories that involve clowns in some way. There's the Aveley abduction case in England. There was a whole family that got abducted, and following the abduction, one of the kids reported what looked like a small clown in his room. So occasionally you see the clown stuff pop up in UFO literature as well. So yeah. But Erica, you're on mute.
My mic. Yeah, sorry, my mic. Blame it on the dog.
Okay.
Stinker, can you hear? Yeah, but Stephanie in chat was saying that there are sexy clowns, and so I can think about maybe have a dream about a sexy clown. But
Stephanie would say that. Yeah,
that
sounds like a very Stephanie thing to say.
I mean, a sexy clown, like I can't picture it. It's kind of actually that in and of itself is traumatizing. I don't even know where to go with that, but I'm not even gonna Google that because Lord knows what's gonna come up if you do that. But
yeah. Well, this is what I'm all about: is expanding your horizons.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, you've given me places to go, and now, I mean, yeah, now I've got to bathe in holy water.
And Goodfellas. Am I a clown?
Right.
Wow, Jack. Yeah, I did not know you had that side of you.
I choose you.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
So you've got the whole Maine, Massachusetts thing going on with Coleman and Stephen King and you go on field trips now and then, right? And you get out and you see what's happening and different festivals and things. What have you visited in your area?
There's so much. I mean, anytime I'm on vacation or even just out on a day trip, I like to like really rack my brain and see if there's something out that way that's related to some kind of weird history. So, so I've been all up and down the coast of Maine. I love Maine. And at one point tried to find where Andrea Puharich had his round table and contacted the Nine, which was in Rockport. Where the house used to be is now like a gated community pretty much of rich people. They don't let you in. So I couldn't go there, but I could look at it from above. There's Exeter, of course. We have the Exeter UFO Festival every year. So I've gone up there a couple times, and Tim Banal and I have gone around people watching and looking at stuff and going to the field where the event happened. It's not too far from where Betty and Barney Hill are buried, so we've been to their gravesite. I've been to the abduction site of Betty and Barney Hill. There's a little gas station up in Lincoln, New Hampshire that has like a makeshift museum in it dedicated to Betty and Barney Hill. That's pretty cool. Let's see, where else?
They've got like roadside monuments, right?
They do. Yep. It's like a big plaque over on the side of the road. But there's a gas station where if you walk in, they have like an alien painted on the wall outside, and then you go inside and they have all pictures and poster boards set up with a display about the incident. So that's kind of cool. Right at the end of the Kankanagus Highway up in the White Mountains. Come over from North Conway over to Lincoln, New Hampshire, and that's right there. So yeah. There's that. And then we have Salem, of course. Salem is kind of touristy, but it's kind of cool. I lived there for a short period of time. I've been to the spots where the Phantom Clowns first appeared. Well, like I said, I wanted to find the clown portal and close it. So
as long as it's not a smoking dog, that's good.
If a person identifies they want to write about stuff, there is something about going to view it themselves. Like we have a town that reminds me, even I've never been to Massachusetts, but what I've heard of Salem somewhat reminds me of. It's called Cassadaga, and it was opened as a it started and became a place that was a refuge for psychics and witches and Wiccans and mediums. And whatever I might choose to think about their chosen industry, and all, there's a whole spectrum of how people deal with that industry and how they behave within it is a whole nother thing. I did feel like I need to go over there now and then and get a feel of what's going on, talk to a psychic, check it out,
There's a lot of people that like defected from Lilydale ended up down there, right? Was that
That's correct.
Yeah.
And like if you're gonna write about them, you need to have some firsthand experience, Yeah.
We have a spiritualist camp in Massachusetts still that's kind of out toward Greenfield. It's in a really tiny town called Montague. And it's the Lake Pleasant Spiritualist Camp. And I don't know that much about it. I'd love to like just go there and meet people, but I think they're really kind of not super welcoming to outsiders from what I understand, but
yeah, there's this is Casadega is a small town, but it clearly has places that tourists are corralled or directed, and it's clearly posted where mind your own business and don't be coming here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the places I've been are just like where a thing happened, or where somebody was born, or a spot that inspired a story. Like, one pretty great place we went once, we just drove up to Bennington College in Vermont because the music conservatory there was what inspired the setting of the House on Haunted Hill by Shirley Jackson, because she was
Mhm.
teaching at Bennington at the time. Um, we pulled up in the music conservancy there. Somebody was practicing violin, but they were doing like that creepy, like plucked violin sound, like you'd hear in the the soundtrack to like The Exorcist or Psycho.
Yeah.
Oh god, that's always fun.
Pada.
We pull up because we want to see like the actual House on Haunted Hill, and there was legit horror movie music coming out.
Oh.
But yeah,
Oh,
driving around
Lord.
finding these places, they don't. I mean, it doesn't have to be paranormal. Sometimes it's just weird. There's a spot, Madame Sherry's Castle in New Hampshire. It's just used to be like a house that was kind of shaped like a castle, and the only thing that's left of it is like a set of stone steps that don't go anywhere. But it kind of arcs around. It's a curved staircase that just doesn't go anywhere. It's the coolest thing. You just go up there and it's just this relic, finding these old relics in different places, and I love all that stuff. Connecticut's loaded with them. Connecticut's just its own weird little universe. um,
You gotta come to Utah. I'm telling you, it's
right.
a lot of weirdness out here too. But yeah,
But I'd love
I love
to.
exploring stuff like that, though. I mean, it's fun. There's just so many cool things
Yeah,
to
I'm pretty
discover.
limited to where I can afford to travel to.
Right?
Uh, if I stopped buying books, I could probably afford a lot of travel. But
Hey, you love it though. I mean, that's cool. I think I love it too. I mean, I am a book hoarder for sure.
yeah. But New England is, I never run out of things to look at in New England. It's a lot of fun, and New York isn't too far, so seeing things in New York or Pennsylvania. But yeah, I'd like to broaden my horizons a little bit, but it's a
I
scary world out there right now.
never got further northeast than like Pennsylvania and Delaware. The time I spent in DC, there were some really old buildings and properties, and I hadn't experienced that in the Southeast,
Mhm.
or really the Southwest where I've been either. And I would think that, yeah, Connecticut, Massachusetts, I would think, like I'd never been in a church that was, like 300 years old till I
Right.
went to Virginia,
Yeah. I mean, the house I grew up in was built in 1779.
Oh, how cool!
The dude that built it
Wow.
served in the Revolutionary War and then came back and built a house.
Oh my god, how cool!
And his name was Abel Bigelow, um, which this is another like tracing genealogy sort of thing. The Bigelows in the town I grew up in were actually ancestors of Robert Bigelow. He followed all the way down.
Yes, never good.
Right. Well, it's interesting
Wow,
anyway.
that is really interesting.
It's
Yikes!
another one of those where
Wow.
you go, wait a minute. Well, it can't be the same Bigelow, right? And then
Right. Oh my gosh, how crazy.
yeah, his ancestry
Ooh.
goes all the way back to Boylston, Massachusetts, which uh, those Bigelows ran like a textile mill and made their fortune doing that. So that family's had money for hundreds of years.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
And interesting people. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds so cool though, to live in a house that old. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, there's older ones around too. I mean, when I moved
Oh
to
my
Salem,
gosh.
you'd be walking down the street and there are places on the historic register that were built in the 1600s, stuff like that. Massachusetts Bay Colony is very old. Um,
Oh my gosh.
and actually, I think the first reported UFO sightings were in the Bay Colony days. Governor Winthrop recorded um, various lights in the sky and an account of missing time with a couple of people on a boat near the Charles River. Uh, ended up coming to a couple miles away with some missing time. Um, so I think that was like 1644, somewhere around there. So yeah, interesting history around here.
Dang.
Yeah,
That sounds really fun.
yeah.
John,
I've never been back in that area, and it just sounds really, really cool.
yes, it does. It does. John Keel claimed they believed witches had lanterns, right? When they were riding on their broomsticks.
Yeah, they'd call them witch lights, and then sometimes see them over the ocean too. Sometimes they would associate them also with like the ghosts of people that died in a shipwreck if it was over the ocean. But often, yeah, they thought it was witches. And
That
of course, we have a whole witch history here too, but most of that is hysteria. It's not like there were actual witches running around most of the time. But
right. That sounds a little like Brown Mountain in North Carolina too, with the
Mhm.
associate the lights with spirits.
yeah, or maybe it was swamp gas, since we're on the anniversary of Swamp Gas Day.
Oh Lord, it is.
Yeah,
I'm going natural phenomena with Brown Mountain, yeah. But
yeah. Well, outside of Boston, back in the Massachusetts Bay Colony days, maybe too. It's hard to imagine what that looked like because a lot of Boston is backfilled. It's not natural land, and if we ever get a really bad earthquake, it's gonna suck for the Back Bay of Boston.
But even if some of it is natural phenomena, that still means there's phenomena yet to be better understood, which should be a given.
Yep.
And I mean, it's all on the path to more discovery. And often for me, leads back around to self discovery as well.
I totally agree with that. I often think that a lot of the times you're following a trail of breadcrumbs that leads you back to yourself or
Yeah.
leads you to a mirror, and you have to look at yourself before you can proceed any
Oh,
further.
that's
Yeah,
almost creepier than a clown
yeah. Well, it
sometimes.
leads you to a mirror, and then you look in the mirror and you end up being a clown.
Yeah, that's me about 9 o'clock at night after I've taken my makeup off and I'm like Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
It's really hot. I know you can picture that. Oh, that's
It's a phantom. Phantom.
Yeah.
well, you know what? At least now that I've got like a happy image of a clown,
There you go.
which I
Yeah.
really appreciate, like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Wow.
maybe that's what Steph was talking about earlier. Yeah. I do want to leave on that though, that there are good clowns. You have to fight the bad clown energy with good clown energy. So so where I tend to think about it. I infiltrated a gathering of clowns recently and I had a wonderful time. They were just great people.
Oh, that actually sounds really fun. Okay, you've got to before we like. I know we've got to go, and I'm sorry, but because I get on these rolls, and I'm just like, I could keep you here for hours and hours. But like, so tell us a little teeny bit about the infiltrating the clown gathering.
Oh yeah, well it's nothing too weird. We actually just do have like a whole bunch of people, younger people too. A lot of younger people that are training to be clowns, just party clowns and like event clowns and doing all kinds of different things. It's become like a whole thing in my hometown of Worcester, Massachusetts. So
Oh wow.
they have regular meetups. They'll just kind of hang out and talk clown business. Very serious clown business. What I call very, very serious funny business. um, so I went to one of them. I just keep forgetting when they actually happen. So then I find out the next day and go, damn, I want to go hang out with clowns again. But yeah, it was a lot of
How
fun.
fun! That sounds fun.
I
bet
taught
that's
one
a
of them
really interesting.
tricks, and then I think because they were interested in playing cards and stuff. So yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to check and see if there's a clown meetup in town.
there might be.
Of course,
Yeah.
with my luck, it'd be creepy clowns. So
Yeah. Don't Google that. Do yourself a favor, because
okay.
what you'll get an ad for meet clown singles in your area. You know.
God. Well, I could say so much right now, but I won't. But I mean, yeah. No. No.
Do this one with only a couple things that I kind of wish I hadn't have said. So I think it was that's a good show on my scale. So we'll keep
Thank you. Yeah. It's
Well,
really
that's
fun.
pretty
Like honestly, yeah, you've started my birthday weekend off on a nice note. So,
Oh yeah, happy early birthday.
happy
thank
birthday.
you. Yeah, I keep hoping, and I'm just putting this out in the universe, that some little fairy, my little birthday fairy, is going to bring me more art supplies, and then I
Yeah.
can try my thing you were talking about, the thing with the microphone, the clown. Oh my God.
Yeah, Sam the Sundown Clown. Yeah.
Oh
Well,
my
who knows?
Lord.
Maybe there'll be a sexy clown popping out of a birthday cake for you.
Please no. Please no. No, anybody that knows me. Yeah. Nope. Mama don't like no sexy clowns. I don't even want to. Nope. I'd rather have David Hasselhoff pop out of my cake than a freaking clown at this point, but I don't know. Anyway, on that really disturbing note, thank you for a very fun evening and a fun show. And it's really been nice talking to you. And we will
it's been
definitely have
great.
to
Thanks
have you
so much
back.
for having me.
Yeah,
Great to
thank
finally
you.
meet and talk to you, Erica, and
I
Jack. It's a
know.
pleasure as always.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's nice. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I know that we'll talk again soon. And everybody that doesn't know, I mean, definitely your website, apstrange.com.
Yep.
So
And my podcast is appropriately called The AP Strange Show. It's very easy to find. So yeah.
I like it. I
It's
like it. But yeah,
everywhere.
it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything. And I hope you have a nice weekend and stay safe out there. Everybody stay safe, and well, yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
All right,
you.
Jack, and thank you,
Thanks.
Jack. And then make sure you guys go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org in case you need me to sing that to you.
Yeah, I'm going to be starting a book club this
Oh yes. Jack, tell us about that.
and go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org. Take a look at the blog, and you'll find details about how to get involved with it. You need to email me to get on the list of people sent Zoom links. You won't be sent a link just because you're on our regular e-list or in our Patreon or anything. It's a separate list just for people that want to come to the book club. So be sure and touch base with me. Let me know you'd like to be sent the Zoom links, and then we'll be talking about my book, Wayward Sons, NICAP and the IC, on Wednesday nights on Zoom, recording it to Zoom, and then putting those recordings on the EFR YouTube channel for public availability. But the bottom line is go to the website, go to the Patreon, or just email me and get the info about how to get signed up for it. Thank you for being here, AP, and thank you, Erica, for
thank you.
facilitating and having me as a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just say really quickly, thank you to everybody in chat. It's been really fun to see some new people in here that I haven't seen in chat. And Stephanie, you're killing me tonight with your little how to protect myself from the creepy clowns that might be trying to abduct me tonight in my sleep. So thank you. But just I love you guys, and thank you so much for helping create a wonderful community. You know, I feel I get, like I've mentioned, I get kind of downhearted with the UFO stuff sometimes because it just can be a real cluster. But like you guys are what keeps me here, and I really feel, you know, very blessed to have you guys as a part of my life. So thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Peace out, and
All
I
right.
will catch you in. I'll catch you the next time I catch you. So
Yeah.
take care, you guys.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.